if I take that $600,000, how much money could I make off that $600,000 in 1 year? So that's exactly what I did. I'm like, all right, I'm going to make a lot more than that $600,000. I lost 13 to make probably 80.
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter. Hey you, this is Christina Suter with Real Estate Breakthrough, and I have Bob Lachance with me, and his assistant reached out to me. His virtual assistant reached out to me to try to book being on my show with me. And the reason why I highlight that is because part of what he does is two things. Not only is he a professional investor, like so many of us are, building his career and building his wealth and his financial freedom through real estate, but he also runs Reva, which is a real estate virtual assistant, is what it literally stands for. So straightforward, great, straight up business name, state what it is, exactly what it is, real estate virtual assistant. And I think it's important that he's going to touch a little bit on why his company of virtual assistants may be a little different than some others. And I'm going to leave it to him. So Bob, why don't you bottom line sort of your history and, what it is that drove you to real estate?
Sure. Bottom line, it's very simple. I played professional hockey for 8 years prior to jumping into real estate, but I also went to school for 4 years at Boston University. I left 2 classes short of getting my degree. So, every year, and you can think back to when you were in school, and if you would have left early, every year you're saying, all right, I'm going to go back. So a season would end. I'd say, all right, I'm going to take summer classes. 1 year goes by, never took those classes. 2 years go by. Fast forward 8 years, obviously, the end of this story. And it was either, I saw the tail of the end of my career coming, and I was either go back to school or jump into an industry that had, zero barriers of entry. That's the beauty of real estate. Anybody can do it, whether you have a 4-year degree or you don't. So, I did a lot of research. I did not want to go back to school. Education to me today is different than it was back then, which now I think everybody should learn the craft that you want to get into, like real estate education. Because if you want to get into that craft, you should educate yourself on it. But back in the day, I was a sociology major, and I basically played hockey to try to make the NHL. So I played, professionally for 8 years, and then when I first started, we all go through that point of decision on what are we going to do next. So I decided that, hey, no barriers of entry, real estate was it. Jumped into real estate, and this was back in 2004. So I decided at that time.
2004. So were you one of those who invested in 2004, 5, and 6, and then all of a sudden the world fell apart?
Yeah, but it wasn't bad because my first deal, I didn't know what kind of investor I was at that time. I thought I was going to be a rehabber. My first deal I got was an MLS deal, and ended up doing a rehab. Did pretty well. They made $32,000 on it in 2 months. But I realized I had no system, no processes. I didn't know what I was doing. So joined my local real estate association, and my first meeting, I saw a speaker speaking on pre-foreclosure, which is short sales and overdated properties, discount them down. And I'm like, you know what? I think now I'm a pre-foreclosure investor. So my next meeting, I went to probably about 50% of the people, and I said, hey, who is the best person in Connecticut? Because that's where I live, and I was doing business in Connecticut at short sales. And they all pointed to one individual. So I went up to him and I said, hey, you have no idea who I am. My name is Bob, blah, blah, blah. And my background, I just did a deal, played pro hockey. I'm not looking for a job, looking for $1 per hour. I'm looking to join a team. And the gentleman said, you know what? I actually am looking for an acquisition person. I said, I'm your guy. I didn't even know what that meant, right? I had zero idea what that meant. Yeah, but I'm here anyway. So he ended up giving me a list of people that weren't paying their mortgage, and he said, go knock on their doors.
Oh, door knocking. He put you right into the fire, straight in. Okay, Bob, here you go.
1 year straight, I did it from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. every Monday through Friday. And then I would come home and I would also skip trace them. What that meant back in the day, I'd go to 411.com, Yellow Pages. I put their name into, obviously, the site, and it would hopefully give me a phone number. And then I would dial and call till about 7, till I would get yelled at, and I would have to go eat dinner with the kids and all that kind of good stuff, right? Because when you first start something, you're so excited at it. And I would have done that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But I did that for a year. And then what I did is I hired a door knocker to take my position. And then I started negotiating with banks. So that's how I kind of got in the short sale world.
Okay, so if you hired a door knocker to take your position, that means you were making enough cash flow that you were actually able to hire somebody to replace what you were doing, which is, boots on the ground, and move yourself to that next level of complexity, which is talking to banks.
Exactly. And it's a process. I know you touched upon it a lot in your show about, you have to start somewhere. And for me, I like starting from the bottom and learning each step of the way, because the only way for you, this is what I realize over, the older we get, is for us to do the best job we can at teaching someone, for us to go through it first, it's a lot easier to teach it. So for me personally, I like starting from the bottom.
Well, and also I want to highlight the other part of your story, which is, he said, okay, great, let's give you a job. He gave you probably one of the hardest jobs, one of the hardest jobs in real estate. And, your background in hockey may have served you, because you were like, okay, fine, let me just run head first into this conversation. And I'm gonna, and you took it on, because there are lots of people, like you said, I have 2 listeners for this show. I have people who are real estate investors or looking to become real estate investors, and I have real estate professionals, people who are already in the field but are looking to continue to fine tune it. For people who are new in the field, they're always like, well, how do I get in there? How do I get in there? It's like, well, the only option they ever come up with is wholesaling or flipping, right? Whereas you just went, let me find a professional. I'm going to throw myself in front of him and do what he tells me to do. Right? And you did, and you kept it for a year. You kept at it to the point where you were able to hire somebody to replace you. That's the diligence of being able to create something out of nothing, because you chose it and you applied the grit that you had to show up for it. I did cold calling for one day and I walked out. So obviously your grit in that area is much stronger than mine, right? I'm good at real estate indoors, but I'm not good at, having somebody yell at me on the phone. That is not my, that's not my joy.
Well, you can outsource that, so that's good. So nowadays you can outsource all of that.
Yeah, no, okay, that is good, because that is very important that you can outsource it. So what is it that you really feel like had you continue to double down on real estate even when it was tough? What is it inside of you? What caused you to stick with real estate, to break through to your financial freedom? Because it's not an easy field.
Yeah, it was either, a lot of my drive was not having to go back to school, to be honest with it. And for me, I'm great, a part of a team, but when you look at it, it's very difficult for me to jump into the corporate world, because there's a lot of stuff that I don't like doing. I'd rather set a goal, hit it, and keep going. Set another goal, hit it, and keep going. So I think the sports behind it of goal setting, for me, a lot of times it's when the lights are not on, what are you doing? For hockey as an example, are you shooting pucks? Are you running? Are you sprinting? Are you working out? What are you doing behind the scenes when people aren't looking? Because once you get on the ice, all of that hard work makes things easier. So for me, if you work in the corporate world, you're pretty much capped on what you can do. And this is, again, my perception. I could be 100% wrong. I've never been in the corporate world, but that was my perception of it. And I think, having a sports background, setting goals and hitting them is very important.
Yeah, no, and I think that is, and also the willingness to do the work that's off the ice. As I've heard many, many times, you give up a 40-hour-a-week job for working for somebody else for a 60 to 80-hour-a-week job working for yourself. So you're trading in something that maybe is actually easier in some ways, but less fulfilling, right? And maybe in that way more challenging for something that actually is more challenging. It actually is harder work. Like, let's get clear here. This is not necessarily easier work, but it is potentially exactly. We both have our stories, don't we? Yeah. So we'll get to hopefully one of those. Hopefully we'll get to one of those. But it is hopefully more satisfying. The reason why we make the exchange is to be satisfied with our lives and with ourselves and what we've created, versus maybe feeling disgruntled that we're giving it all out to something else.
Yeah, the older we get, that we talked a little bit about. I just turned 50 this year. And
No. I'm 35 and I'm staying 35. That is it, Bob. No.
I turned 36 and I turned 36. So, The older we do get, we get to see things in a different lens, which I think the beauty of that's the only beauty of age. Other than that, it's part of the game. You have your experience, right? We all experience different things, and we get to see things, today that were way different than yesterday. And I personally like, you know, the reason why I love business and without working for somebody else is because number one, like you said, you set your hours 100%. I have three kids; they all play sports. I can't remember unless I was obviously out of state for something. I rarely ever missed any of their sporting events, whether it was ice hockey, whether it was baseball, whether it was golf, whatever it was. I was there all the time, and if I worked for somebody, I would have to ask them for time off. Like, I don't operate like that. That's the beauty of real estate. And I know a lot of, I mean, you know this, right? Especially many of your listeners are saying, that's what I want. I want to be able to pick my hours, right? I want to be able to do things and see my kids play those sports, or if it's whatever your kids do, we want to make sure we be there because life goes very, very fast. And I'd rather work my butt off within those times and take an hour off to go see my kids play. So for me, that worked out very well.
So my why, everybody talks about their why, right? So one of your whys was to not go back to school because that was not an area that you succeeded, but you found an area that you do succeed in. And therefore you can double down and get satisfaction out of it. My why was that there was a time period in my mom's life when I was a little kid where she was a single mom raising three kids. And what was she doing at that time when she was an entrepreneur? So she was running her own business out of the home, trying to be a mom, trying to earn money for, keeping the house, paying the mortgage, feeding us kids. But it also meant she was often very late picking me up. And so I really remember those times and those hours where I was waiting for my mom to come pick me up. And so as simple as it is, but I think you relate to this, one of my whys and why I built my real estate portfolio before I got married and before I had my child was so I could pick up my daughter or my son, happened to be a daughter, on time from school.
Love it. Yep.
I wanted to be there for the sports events. I wanted to be there for the afternoon chats. I wanted to be there when she got out of the school building and she knew that I was there. That was me. That was for me.
That's great. It's kind of funny. You said the why that you do things, right? And you look at your project, like where you start. And I always say this, where you start in real estate it's not where you're going to end. I started as a rehabber. I got into short sales. I jumped in the real estate education. I own a virtual assistant company, and I have also a real estate investment company. So the point being is where we start. So if you're newer, you're listening to this, or you're thinking about, you're at a point of decision saying, hey, what do I do next, right? Because every single one of us was at that point, whether we're younger or not, and we're trying to figure out what our next step is. You know what? You got to look at it and say, hey, this is what I want to do, and have that drive to do it. And know that wherever you start is not going to be in the end where you end up. Because I could tell you, you're probably not in the same spot where you started than where you are now, right?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. It's funny because I actually have almost gone full circle. So I started in single family started with a single family rental. Moved into fourplexes, moved into multifamily, 7 different states, 50 doors I owned direct, 300 I shared with other people, sold everything, not in 2006 because I wasn't that smart, sold everything in 2009. Ah! Ow, yes, it does. It hurts. It hurt a lot. But my daughter was born in October of 2009, right? So I transferred everything into passive investments, right? So I was doing hard money loans, LPs, and, lending to flippers. Turned all into hard money investments so I could be a mom, right? Part of my goals and my mission and vision was so I could be a mom and show up on time for school, right? And now I'm back to going, hey, doors. I like doors. I like owning doors. So tell me, you have both a virtual assistant company and you have your own investment company. Tell me more about your investment company, because you went from, like I said, rehabber into flipper or some version of this. Forgive me, I'm getting it wrong. Right, into owning doors, into owning multiple doors, having a fund of your own, having a syndication company of your own, into doing doing 2 jobs, which is the virtual assistants as well. So tell me about that company that you created.
So it's actually interesting. So I helped start a real estate education company. So in 2004, couple of properties, got into short sales. We started doing these national, like a lot of them. I have a business partner that did a lot of public speaking at the time with different organizations. We got asked to be partners with them to run the back end of the coaching program because we were doing, I think at that time, over 1,000 short sales. So we were doing a lot of these things, turning them around. And then, so we started that company. Then 2007, we had our buddies come to us, and they were local guys in Connecticut. And they said, hey, we're starting this company called Fortune Builders. Do you guys want to partner? I'm like, yeah. We're like, all right, this is from ground up. Our buddies there, football guys. My partner was a rugby guy, I was a hockey guy. So we're like, hey, and the other one was, I think, a wrestler. Yeah, Paul was a wrestler. So we all sat down. They're like, hey, listen, we created these two products. It's a wholesale and a rehab course. We're going to go around from real estate investment group to real estate investment group. He said, we're going to sell these, but the next step is, they're very, very smart guys, Yale guys. They're thinking, 5-10 years ahead. Very, very smart. So they said, we want to start a coaching program, but we don't know anything. Like, we have never ran one. I know you guys do. You guys want to join our team? We're like, sure. This is literally from ground up. So we joined the team and helped them grow it. And, through that time, the reason why I started the VA company, it's kind of interesting. This is part of the mission stuff. I know you talk a lot about.
I do talk a lot about mission and purpose and financial freedom. Living a life of purpose is the most satisfying thing I know. And the more people I can get to do that, the better I think the planet is, period.
I agree. So I was looking at all the students that I would go through. So I would get on a call, and I was probably doing 10 to 15 coaching calls a week with students, 30 minutes long. But I saw a common theme because I would say, all right, I'd get on a call this week and I'd say, okay, here are the action steps needed. Follow the program. Here's the training you need to do, but also here are the action steps, whether it's door knocking, cold calling, like we talked about, whatever those action steps were. A common theme was they did probably 20% of the work that needed to be done to be successful. So I'm like, there's gotta be a service or there's gotta be a product out there somewhere that I could refer them off to help them do those tasks so then they could be successful. And then fast forward, I didn't see it. This started in 2007, right? So now fast forward. And then 2013, I got introduced to what a virtual assistant was. I'm like, So let me test one myself in my own real estate business. So tested one. And then in 2014, light bulb went on. I'm like, you know what? This could be a business because I know it's a need. So I started referring people over, and then I started kind of my own test company. And all my virtual assistants out of the Philippines, started a test company. And then we were at like 100 students. I'm like, all right, now it's real. So then we really started, promoting it and it started going wildfire while I was obviously coaching, running my real estate business and my virtual assistant company. So it was a pretty interesting time.
Stable work from home careers for Filipino virtual professionals. That's what your guys' line is. Stable work from home careers for Filipino virtual professionals. And I can see just in the commentaries and in the stories that you've shared so far, that sort of sense of pushing self forward, right? Whether it was as a professional hockey player, whether it was your very first job of doing acquisitions and door knocking, whether it was creating your real estate professional company, right? Being able to create your investment company, creating the educational company, right? And then being able to now create this virtual assistant company. I mean, that's not a shortage of direction and passion for the world and engaging it. What is it about the mission level of helping others, creating a stable work home careers for Filipino virtual professionals?
I think in the end, it's about helping others, because if you help you help more than enough people, you get what you want in the end. And I think for me, it's, even when I go back to when I played sports, I was more of an assist guy. So I didn't care if you scored 100 goals. If I got all the assists, I set you up. I don't care about being in the newspaper. I don't care about doing these things we have to do because this is marketing. We have to do this stuff to drive in leads. Like, yeah, we have to do this.
I'm a Libra. I'm like, this isn't about me. Why am I doing it? This isn't about me. It's about helping others move forward. Why do they need to know about my trips to, why?
That's why that's why I don't post anything on Facebook. I'm like, I don't, and this is just me. Like, I'd rather, have somebody, give you the credit than me. So that's my point. So for me, my mission has always been building a team, being around people I want to be with, building a great culture, and then helping people. Because if you help that one person, they also have family members, relatives too. The trickle down effect is just compounds on itself. So that's really my main drive in how and why I continue to build companies.
All right. So I think the best way to probably help you market your company at this moment is to ask, how do you train your virtual assistants so that they can deal with complex things like, what does a real estate professional need? How do you action emails efficiently and effectively, to managing the time difference? I have a Filipino-based virtual assistant, and I'm up at 5 or 6 in the morning to talk to her at her 9 or 10 o'clock at night, so that my partner, who happens to be in Tennessee, who's in the middle, like all three of us can meet all on one phone call. And I'm like, okay, well, good thing I don't mind getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Right?
So we simplify everything though. So to your point, we simplify everything. So we either have part-time, or we offer part-time, which is 20 hours a week, or full-time virtual assistants. So and they stick within your time zone. So it won't require you to wake up early. So for me, I'm in the East Coast. We have clients all over the country, and it just sticks within their time zone. So we don't run into that. So you don't have to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning to fulfill their needs. We actually recruit, manage all that process. So that's how we get around it.
That's the time thing. Okay, that makes sense. Now, how do you train them to the level of professionalism, or even culture? Maybe it's not even professionalism, but culture of what we're used to when we think of assistants and executive assistants in the U.S. standards, and they're of a different culture.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, like I said, we've been doing this. My first virtual assistant I had was in 2013. Started my first company in 2014. So I've learned all of that. We created a month platform of training for our virtual assistants before we actually place them with a client. And we also have managers that do training with each of our virtual assistants that oversee the VA client relationship. So we've actually filled that gap within there, and they learn many of the systems that I have in my own real estate company. So it's not just, we have the theory behind it and how to work with U.S. clients, but it's also they have the technical knowledge of many of the tasks being done. So
who do you find mostly uses your VA? Is it real estate professionals, investors like me, and people like you, right? Who we teach, we speak from stage, we run podcasts, we do all this stuff. We have students, we're investing actively, right? Or is it really real estate agents? Or is it some other group altogether? Or what are you finding your clients are?
Well, it's pretty much all of them. So you say we have many real estate agents, we have real estate investors, we have property managers. We also have some hedge funds that use our service too on the property management side. And we also have attorneys, mortgage brokers. So anyone in the real estate professional space uses our virtual assistants.
All right. Beautiful. Is there more you want to tell me about that? Because I'm going to jump to your other company, which is your real estate company. So talk to me about what your real estate company is doing now. What is it that you guys are investing in? And if you want to touch on what your plans are for this, what seems to be the Trump administration in front of us, Trump 2, you're welcome to jump into that as well. But who are you guys? What are you doing?
Yep. No, we're doing mostly wholesaling and wholetailing and just little cleanouts. We're also building up our portfolio as well, just like you talked about a little bit. Kind of went through that whole cycle as well. So I have my real estate company. I also lend money too, just like you, on kind of to a lot of times our own deals, just set up another company to make money off it. So it's another profit center. So for anyone listening to this, lending money is a pretty good little profit center for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I like lending money.
Making money. So that's pretty much what we do. We're doing the wholesaling side. We're doing a little bit. We don't do fix and flip because it takes too much time. We'll do maybe, like, for instance, we're closing on a house next week where we have to put new carpet in, but I don't really consider that a fix and flip.
Okay. So you're wholetailing, which means you're working with other wholesalers, right? You do a random fix or flip, and you do hard money lending, and then buy and hold. And when you do the buy and holds, do you guys take in investors' money? Do you take in investors' money for any one of these models?
So the answer is yes. Right now I'm using we're using a lot of our own money, but we're also using private money, and then we're going to refi them out as well. So to your point, so we have a package down in Florida right now. So we do it mostly Florida, Connecticut, and that side of it. And we had private money, and we're refinancing them out into different packages. So
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. The reason why I'm asking is like I, as you know, I've been doing this long enough, even though I'm only 35 years and 2 months old. No. That like I have the stock portfolio, I have the hard money lending. I wouldn't call it a business, but I do hard money lending. And I have, my own buying doors, and I have private money, people I know who know and trust and like me, who I invest inside of deals that I'm running. But I wouldn't say it's a syndication company, and I'm not marketing it far and wide. It's much more of a boutique concierge service at best. Right. But that's intentional. It's intentional because I'm not actually at this age. Okay, I'm not 35 and 2 months old. But at this age, and with my daughter being 15, I'm much more interested in a portfolio that works and businesses that bring me returns than trying to do something that seems like it's complex for the sake of complexity. Now, the reason why I say that is because I have been guilty, 100% guilty of doing complexity for the sake of complexity.
The shiny object syndrome. Come on, a shiny object.
Hey, Bob, I would love to call it shiny object. I really would. That was early. This was just ego. This was just pure, oh man, I'm just so cool. I can do this. This was just ego, babe. Like, yeah, I can flip $3 million houses. Yeah, I can. Do I like it? No, I don't.
Hey, I got burnt on a knockdown rebuild in Greenwich, Connecticut. So I understand the ego part. Lost 150 grand. So I get it.
Right, exactly. And then you have to make it whole, because if you want to keep your reputation intact and your brand intact, right, and be known, liked, and trusted ongoingly, you actually have to make your investors whole. I know that might sound like a weird concept to others. Sorry to be deeply sarcastic in this moment, but I'm just saying, and I kind of almost hope that turns into a reel, because it's like, what do I want to get out there, right? The level of professionalism after being in this career for so long, what's the level of professionalism that needs to be brought forward in order to hold our brand and trust intact in this field? So forgive me for my getting on a soapbox. I can step off my soapbox now if you want me to.
Hey, I listen to exactly what your story is. I mean, a lot of my story, that's what I said at the beginning, is where you start, not where you finish. A lot of the story is very, very similar to yours, where you start. Hey, you start with single family, you invest in a syndication, you start lending money, you do flips, you buy single families, you sell them all, you build it back up. So I'm in that stage right now of building it back up, because I sold everything at the height of the market, or after COVID. Yeah. So then we sold everything, and I'm like, now I'm kicking myself, like, oh, we would have just kept them. But it's hindsight,
I can't tell you how many people are around this COVID conversation, right? 'Cause you run a podcast, I have a podcast. So I have a lot of conversations around this. So I can't tell you how many people are like, oh man, if I just kept my properties through COVID. Because we all went, well, either 2015, sort of that false stutter that the market did in 2015, or whether it's, oh my God, real estate's going to crash because of COVID. How can we sell houses if nobody can see a house? Right. And then, so there's different stories about that. And then now yours is like, I wish I'd kept them after COVID. And I'm like, I know a lot of people who didn't even keep them through COVID. Like, I'm busy giving you kudos in my mind for keeping them through COVID. I'm like, good job. You didn't flinch.
Now we see what happened. Of course, it all worked out, right? But no, the reason why I did sell is because we owned like 3-family, 2-family houses. It wasn't the single family model, and we live in Connecticut. It's just a pain in the butt. Once a winter hits, there's a lot of headache that goes into a lot of that. A pipe freezes, it goes down on the first floor, et cetera, et cetera. So we realized over time that single families are a lot easier to manage, a lot easier to find tenants, and they stay a lot longer. So that's the new focus.
No, it's all good. It's all good. We have 3 different, we're talking about single families, individual residences. You have a different tenant for that. And then you've got your 4-plex, right? Which is great because you have the long-term financing 30-year fixed on it. I like that little sweet spot. But you end up with a lot more. You end up with the hassle of 4 families for the same advantage that a single family can give you. And you kind of get better vacancy control, right? Because you only have 1 unit empty at the time, generally. Or you go big. Or you go, I'm going to get 50 doors, 80 doors, some like 150 doors. And I'm just gonna like go big and get an on-site property manager or management company, depending upon how big go big is for you.
Yeah, the other reason why we went single family too is because if hypothetically you ever wanted or needed to liquidate it, it's a lot easier to sell one single family house than a big building. So that's another thing for us. Like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years, so it's kind of we've gone through a lot of ups and downs, if you will. So the older we get, again, we change a little.
We change a little bit. I have landed after 35 years, I have landed in the place that they all work if you work them and if they're compatible with you. And that may sound really weird, but it has to do with your nature and what you're willing to tolerate and what you're willing to put in. Right? Like I've never done ground up development. I've got a friend of mine, a partner of mine, who's going to start doing ground up development. I'm probably going to support him in his ground up development. But I don't think I have the nature for that. Just like I don't actually like running flips. I don't have the nature for sitting in that. I have the nature for hard money loans. I have the nature for due diligence. I have the nature for multifamilies and for single families because I can babysit an asset over a long period of time. Right? But having to be there every day, it kind of boils down to, if it involves yelling, it generally is not something I want to be in.
Well, it's funny you say that because I started off as a rehabber and I realized that I actually went to Home Depot University and I was back and forth to Home Depot 3 or 4 times a day for a full month. I'm like, there's got to be a better way. What is going on here? So.
As what are you willing to do? What satisfies you? So I think many of them could be successful, but like I've got a friend of mine, Carmine, who's incredibly successful in the flipping market. He does the $1.5 million, flip it for $3 million. He does that all day long. He's an interior designer. He's incredibly good at it. It's a Carmine product when he's done. Like, Lily, oh, there's another Carmine building. So, and that's his gig, not mine. No, okay, so let's get to, so tell me a story about how something went wrong and what did you learn from it? Because ultimately we all have to face something going wrong in real estate. There's no avoiding that.
Well, the easy one is the knockdown rebuild. I got out of my lane, so we had the old can't miss deals. We had to put money, non-refundable deposit down. I had a business partner at the time. It was like, oh, we got to do it. I'm like, all right, I'm in. I'm more of an I'm in guy. I like to, I test stuff out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, you know what? You'll figure it out later. So anyway, ended up finding the project wasn't what it was. So we literally were fighting to get our deposit back, but this was in Greenwich, Connecticut, and it was $475 an hour for attorneys there. Before you know it, we were in another 10 grand to try to get our deposit back. And we're like, all right, we could either go one or two ways, really fight this and lose a heck of a lot more, or cut our losses. So we cut our losses. The takeaway there is, there's never a can't miss deal. You got to do it this quick, with a gun to your head. Like, never feel like real estate's that way. If it is, it's never going to work out like you imagine it or dream it to be. It doesn't work that way. So real estate's a long game. My takeaway is don't get caught up in that shiny object, can't miss deal, because there's so many deals in real estate. You'll have more opportunities the longer you're in this game.
That's such a good description, and I find that to be incredibly true. If somebody's making you hurry up and rush, that to me is almost like immediate walk away. Right? The moment they're like, oh no, you got to do this in the next, I will work quickly. Let's not be unclear. If I see something on the MLS and it's at a good price, I'll put in my offer and I'll put in my earnest money. I'll pay to play. I will show up and I'll get it done. But at the same time, if they're like, no, you got to give us like 2 days or it goes hard. It's like, no.
You want me to give you a recent deal? This is actually funny. So I've been in this business for 20 years, right? Literally, this is going on right now. I put a $20,000 non-refundable deposit on a piece of land. I was going to build a house right now. And then but it required me to put 600 grand into it. And I thought I could build more than 2 houses because it was 2 different lots. Come to find out, I couldn't put the house where I wanted it. And I had a decision. Either I was going to close it, try to lock it up, like close on the deal, try to lock it up, or build a house, knowing I could lose my deposit. So I had to negotiate. I lost 13 grand. I got 7 back. But what I did was, so I'm lending that money, and I'm like, if I take that $600,000, how much money could I make off that $600,000 in 1 year? So that's exactly what I did. I'm like, all right, I'm going to make a lot more than that $600,000. I lost 13 to make probably 80.
Okay, I was going to say you can make at least 60 if you had $600,000 out there working at 10% without points, right? So that's easy. Yeah, so yeah, you add your points. Yeah, your interest is worth 60, and you add your points, and you've got 80. So yeah, you make sure you don't make a mistake with the 600,000, and you swallow on the 13.
Yeah, I'm like, you know what? I'll find another property. So so this is going on right now. It's kind of funny. I could have put some kind of clauses in the contract to get out, but I wanted the deal at that time, and then 2 weeks later, I didn't want it. So it's just part of the game.
All right. So what do you have for people as far as if they want to get a hold of you, they want to engage with you, they want to lend you money, they want to know more about your projects, maybe they even want a virtual assistant. How do people get a hold of you, Bob, and be able to partake in this? I'm going to pause here. There is so much value in people who have walked around the block, kicked the tires, decided what we're good at, settled into our lane, and then know how to move forward. There's so much value in that those are the people where I'm like, yeah, that's somebody you want to invest with. That's somebody who spent the time to figure out not just the real estate field, but who they are in that field and what it is they wish to achieve. And that's the person you want to give your money.
Yeah. And definitely do your due diligence. The advice I would give is do your due diligence on those people, because I've seen, and I know a lot of friends that have given the people to the wrong, or given money to the wrong people. I thought they were the right people as well. They were literally associates of ours, but you got to do your due diligence. Talk to past individuals that have lent them money. Make sure they got their money back, which is very, very important, especially in this space. I'm sure you've seen it before, and it happens more often than not. So, if you're going to lend, or if you're going to borrow money from somebody or lend money to somebody, make sure we do our due diligence. Yep.
Beautifully said. All right. How do people get a hold of you?
You can check us out on our website. You could go through Reva Global, REVA Global.com. You can send me an email at bob@revaglobal.com. If you have any real estate questions, if you have any virtual assistant needs or questions, just reach out anytime.
All right, Bob. Thank you so much for being on the show. This is Christina Suter with Real Estate Breakthrough. We post a new show every 2 weeks on YouTube, Roku TV, Amazon TV, as well as on all the iHeartRadio, Spotify, and other platforms. Hopefully you have learned something from today. To longer-term experts who are perfectly willing to surrender our egos onto the difficulty of what it means to be a professional, long-term, successful real estate investor is being willing to win and being willing to lose. Thank you so much, Christina Suter.